What's up, guys? Welcome back to the JP and Trav show. As always, it's your host with the most, JP. To my right, my esteemed co-host, brother, and friend, Travis J. Davison. Travis, how you feeling, man?
Man, I'm great. I'm great. Obviously, just got back from the combine where I saw both of you. Obviously, Indy, where you live, but
Yeah,
Thor, hardest working man in draft coverage. So it was a lot of fun. Obviously, the first time up there for us in Team Sports Consulting Group, made a lot of really good connections with scouts. Came back today, closed a football contract, which feels good. And then, yeah, just excited to talk all things Jim Nagy, all things Sooner draft prospects. Just all things with our buddy Thor.
yeah. Indeed, as Trav just said, we have our buddy Thor Nystrom joining the show. This is his second time on the show, and this all came together, over some nice shrimp and cocktail sauce at St. Elmo's with some steaks, and everything. So, Thor, man, welcome to the show.
Yeah, long time no see, boys. It was just Sunday night, I think. But yeah, it was good seeing you at St. Elmo's, and it's good seeing you again.
Indeed, man. What do you think of the combine and the city, how they did this year?
I love the combine in Indianapolis. Like, I don't want it to move. Everything is just so close together in that city, and between the convention center and Lucas Oil Stadium, like everything in between, it's like hotels and bars and restaurants. So it's like sort of the perfect setup for an event like that. So, and I like going back for the shrimp cocktails at St. Elmo's every year. So I'd like them to stay there.
Yeah. Trav, how was your first time trying the shrimp cocktail? Can you let everybody know what you thought?
It was fantastic. I'm a hot food guy. I think most people on this pod know what I'm about when it comes to spicy foods. But yeah, it's one of those things, like, it's not a pepper hot. It doesn't stick with you. It's just like a punch in the nasal cavity hot, where it all hits you at once and you kind of can't help but make a bit of a face, but then it's gone. Like, you're back at it again. So we obviously had two orders on the table. I took some of that horseradish and stirred it into my tomato juice, my chilled tomato juice. St. Elmo's was awesome. I'm excited to see when they get that other hotel like built out. That's going to be
Yeah.
insane. It's right next to the convention center, like right out the doors of it. You're going to go in right there. Like, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be beautiful. Unfortunately, I wasn't there early in the week when the weather was actually nice. I got there late in the week, and it felt like I was summiting Everest as I walked, into a 50-mile-an-hour wind. Yeah, that was absolutely brutal. I could only laugh to stop from crying. But hey, I recommend going to the combine for anybody. They have a fan experience as well, where you can sit and watch and boo Will Howard, I guess. But we'll have OU fans will have they'll be very well represented there next year. You look at guys like R. Mason Thomas and Gentry Williams and Robert Spears Jennings, and a lot of these guys, Grayson Holton, we've probably got 10 to 15 guys that'll have opportunities to get invites. So we'll be well represented. So if you're a Sooner fan in the Midwest, or you just like to travel, I would go check out the combine. It is a unique experience.
Agreed. Yeah, and there was more fans there on Saturday than I had ever seen there in the stands. That was the day we had the quarterbacks, running backs, receivers testing. But yeah, it seems like not only is there more interest in than before, but also that they're actively facilitating fans to have that experience. So it's pretty cool to see the event grow.
Was that not a situation years in the past? Did you not have Colleen Wolfe and Reggie Wayne and all these guys out there kind of putting on a show for the fans?
Yeah, like in years past, they didn't even let like other media in, much less fans. Like the media they let in, it was like NFL Network, and then like the biggest players in the space they would get access to. But like nobody else. I was very select, and then no one in the stands, no fans. So it's just like the teams would be in the boxes. Like, it was kind of eerie.
That's weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a great idea to let the fans in there.
I don't know
Yeah,
why
it created an atmosphere. I mean, people were. It was really cool to hear people cheer for 40s or give like the ooh, like whenever Isaiah Bond was talking all that cash money and ended up being still blazing fast at 4.39. Like, don't get me wrong, that's faster than anybody I know personally, but like it's still not 4.1 or 4.2, and you can't get up on the podium and talk crazy and then have Matthew Golden, who didn't say a word about the 40, beat everybody's time. Like, but it was funny, like, watching people react. And then it is interesting considering how the local fans treated Will Howard, because like that had to have been distracting to a point, which is kind of like, you're not supposed to, like, they were like, when we were walking along, like, you're not supposed to walk next to the 40s because they're worried about distractions. Like, we're all the way up on the concourse and they're like, don't walk. Like, security was on us. And it's like, okay, like, but there were people booing Will Howard anytime they were shown on the screen. I'm like, man, I don't know how these no distraction works with those fans, but I bet he's distracted.
I mean, people up here don't like Ohio State, Trav. I mean, that's just a fact. In the Midwest, if you're not an Ohio State fan, for the most part, in these parts at least, and obviously Michigan, you don't like Ohio State. So that it must have been a lot of just Indiana, Purdue, maybe some Michigan fans obviously sprinkled in there that were butthurt. But he has a ring, so
yeah. That national championship makes a lot of things go away as far as boos. But I know, the big news with Thor is you might be the happiest non-OU person I've met when it comes to Jim Nagy getting hired.
Yeah.
You told me you're an OU fan now.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that don't know, Thor, NFL draft analyst, he's working for Matt Berry's company, Fantasy Life, does a great job for them. Even had his own draft kit, like his own draft head to toe. He had his New Era. He had his Thor, Run the Thordy. He had all kinds of stuff. So tell me not only your background with Nagy, but then also, like, what were your initial thoughts when you saw it?
Yeah, I mean, like, Nagy, that's all through the draft work at the Senior Bowl. And Nagy took over the Senior Bowl, I don't know how many years ago. I don't know how many years he was there.
2018.
2018, yeah. And he had taken over for Phil Savage, I believe. And Nagy, like, he took the event to another level. Like, he's, it's obviously a guy who's worked in NFL scouting departments for a long time, and he obviously has an eye for talent. But, like, what I really appreciated about him was he really took to social media and, like, interacting with fans. Like, he'll actually reply to people on Twitter, like, even the people that are giving him crap. One year, I mean, this must have been one of his first years there, because I was sort of bitching that they didn't take Easton Stick. I forgot what year that was, but when Easton Stick came out of NDSU, and the Senior Bowl, it's just stupid, right? Like, it's bottom of the roster kind of guys. But, like, I was like, why didn't you take Stick instead of this guy? Nagy actually replied to me and, like, sort of explained why, which is kind of cool. But he interacts on there. He's funny and he's clever on social media. And I actually think it will matter. I actually think that will move the needle for some recruits, like, merely just his acumen on social media. That's the salesman aspect. But, like, the ability to identify the prospects and not just go by the recruiting boards, like, actually break down their film. He's a film sicko. That's really going to help as well. So, and by the way, I think he's the guy that did all the relationships with the city of Mobile. Like, that's something the fans didn't see. He had a whole bunch of, like, the city of Mobile was supporting the Senior Bowl more than they had ever before. And I think that portends, if I'm going to put on my draft analysis hat and project forward, I think that projects pretty well to his dealings with boosters and NIL and all that sort of stuff. And his background in the NFL, he's not going to find the NIL stuff weird at all. That's going to be second hat to him in dealing with agents and that sort of a thing. I think the whole thing's great, and I think he's going to be a big value add.
Have you talked to him since the hire?
I sent him a congratulatory message, and he replied. But yeah, it's very happy for him.
Good. JP, what were your kind of initial thoughts once you saw like just all of the outpouring of like national people like Thor, like others, and what's your take as far as the relationships with the boosters and NIL as an athletic director?
Yeah, no, I mean I think it is a gigantic move. I mean the only people that were negative about the move were the extreme OU doomers, which we've been dealing with them all year. But other than that, man, it's to get a guy like that honestly by all metrics could have been an NFL GM by now, and has the requisites to be that. To come to Oklahoma, I think shows what he thinks of the program. And he said as much, right? Even today in the press conference and different press releases that he's done, he really believes that you can do things at Oklahoma. And I think it's a feather in the cap of obviously Joe C., the boosters and everybody else at Oklahoma, that they're being forward thinking and thinking of, hey, how can we get these things off of Brent Venables' plate? But going out and getting a guy like Jim Nagy, because, let's be honest, they've been under a lot of scrutiny, particularly Joe C., with the way that men's basketball and obviously football have gone this year, the men's sports in general, the major ones at least. And so this is, I think, a big time get. I mean, I can't describe enough having a guy like that guy. I mean, a Senior Bowl executive that has really made it what it is. The Senior Bowl was more of an afterthought before he, came into prominence there, and he's taken it to what it is now. So you hope that he does the same thing with OU, and from everybody's reaction, that guy's going to do a great job.
So Thor, a lot of people are like, okay, what is he really going to be doing? What is he best at? Obviously, running the Senior Bowl, you've had a lot of people come through the Senior Bowl that weren't, highly touted guys, that weren't just the obvious, oh, I found them on a mock draft, so, bring them in. They're a surefire first or second rounder. Like, he was finding gems to bring in that actually ended up getting drafted high. What are some of them that you remember from your time kind of paying attention, obviously heavily draft stuff, which is your livelihood, but also just Senior Bowl? Like, there were some offensive linemen from Whitewater. There's a few different prospects. Can you give us a couple examples of guys that Jim Nagy or Jim Nagy's team of scouts found that were diamonds in the rough and shot up draft boards?
Yeah, I mean, my mind was going to the offensive lineman too. One from around here, a D3 guy, Ben Barch, was that 5 years ago, something like that, 4 or 5 years ago. And Quinn Meniere's as well, D3. Like, they just do a really good job scouting up and down, and they do find those diamonds in the rough, D3 or some of these FCS guys. He doesn't like force it, but when that guy justifies being there, I mean, in this game this year, they brought in for the first time, I believe ever, a Canadian collegiate quarterback. Like Mark Rippon, he played at Washington State. He was Canadian, but he didn't come from a Canadian college. But the Taylor Elgersma this year, just because the kid showed something on film, he has a big arm, he has an NFL frame, so let's give him a shot. So yeah, he does a really good job with that.
Oh, Mr. Worldwide, Jim Nagy, about to have OU's roster looking like the San Antonio Spurs.
Mr. Worldwide.
Gonna be bringing in Canadians, and we've already got Daniel Akinkumi. So we're at least across the pond. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, as far as spreading the net far and wide. How do you think? So, I mean, Jim's gonna fill out his staff here at Oklahoma. I'm wondering if Thor Nystrom will be on the staff soon at Oklahoma. But like,
my phone line's open, Jim.
Get him on down.
Good to know. So with that, how much do you think? Like, do you think he's going to take staff from the Senior Bowl? Like, is Jim like? I know some people, like when Brent Venables first came here, Brent was like, I'm not taking any of my guys out of the portal, like out of respect for Dabo. And a lot of us were like, take all those players. They all know your defense and they're all like all Americans. Like, please take them. Like, we will be better immediately for it. So, there was some disagreement in that regard. Obviously, there are some people that are like, I don't want to bring my former people with me out of respect for my former employer or whatever. But it's college football in general, sports in general, it's cutthroat. Like, if you have good people, like, sometimes you can't stand on, just I'm doing the right thing. Sometimes it's like, we got games to win. And if you've got somebody on your Senior Bowl staff that's a really good evaluator and that likes working for you, give them the opportunity to work. So I guess that's kind of the setup to say, what do you think Jim's staff looks like? Do you think he's already identified some people? Do you think he keeps a list of guys that if he ever took a college job that he would take? And do you think that some of the Senior Bowl staff is going to be following him?
I'm sure he has kept a list. Yeah. Over the years. And I think one interesting thing about him, and this is going to help, when you're talking with recruits as well, is the wide list of contacts that he has, the deep Rolodex. I mean, not only did he work in the NFL, but he was, in some ways, I think he would have seen himself as actively working for all 32 teams through his position at the Senior Bowl, right? I mean, like, some of this stuff, of course, he does his own evaluations, but one of the other that he listens to the 32 teams, he gets requests from the 32 teams, as far as who they want to see. And it's that sort of a back and forth. And then, of course, he hosts them during the week of the event. He has all kinds of contacts. So he could draw from any. Yeah, I mean, it could be people that evaluated with him in Mobile. It could be any number of NFL contacts or young, up and comers that his contacts can point him to. So I just think that's a guy who has his spider tentacles, or however he says, web or whatever, like going everywhere.
Got you. Yeah, it's interesting because the NFL obviously works from a regional perspective, right? Like, you've got, a team full of scouts. It's, it's not like one is doing all offensive linemen, one's doing, it's not positional based, it's regional based, right? You've got the West Coast, you've got, the South, you've got whatever, you've got these schools, go to these pro days, bring your prospects forward, and then we will, basically stand on the table for our guys. We'll compare them, contrast, all that kind of stuff. So I wonder if it gets to a level like NFL where Jim's like, hey, I've got a regional guy working at OU that maybe he looks at the ACC, or maybe another guy looks at the Big Ten. Maybe one guy, it is true region and not just conferences. How would you set it up if you were a college GM? Would you look at a pro model like that? Or would you, I don't know, how would you do it?
Well, I think Nagy's going to set it up like the NFL front office. Like Belichick and those guys, they talked about that. Mike Lombardi was the GM there at UNC, set that thing up like a pro-style personnel sort of front office. And that's what I expect Jim Nagy to do. Just run the thing like an NFL team. And not only do I think Oklahoma gets better there, I was curious, wasn't it today when Venables said he was going to call defense again?
Yeah, so it had been reported already, but today, like he had already said in a press conference, but today's press conference, obviously with Mateer and Nagy, like he reiterated, he's like, I'm calling the defense, and it's because that's what I'm good at it. You know what I mean? Like he's going to get to coach more football as opposed to do front office stuff. But yeah, he's calling the defense.
Yeah, and so I was curious, like having a guy like Nagy, or knowing you were going to get a guy like Nagy, if that was a precipitating factor in that, in addition to being able to trust Arbuckle, now the Arbuckle dash Mateer tag team duo, but Arbuckle to be the offense coach, right? Like you can take, I don't always agree with the coaches calling the plays, but Venables, I actually think, is one of the few guys you could say is a legitimate value add over someone who would be his subordinate or underling, because he's so creative. And the play, it's not a system. It's, it's sort of like Brian Flores in the NFL, where you're getting crazy stuff thrown at you every single time, that, the different play calls that he's doing. And in college, he brought all kinds of stuff or popularized things that weren't concepts that weren't like, I think about it on the back end, like playing the positionless kind of football between the linebackers and the safety cores, where you have interchangeable parts, and then you do all the crazy stuff with the replacer blitzes. And he obviously greatly values the defensive front play. You know, that's sort of a hallmark of his teams. Everybody greatly values that. The interesting stuff is what goes on beyond that. I've always appreciated how confused he can make quarterbacks on the other side. You're facing collegiate quarterbacks, and if you can change the picture on them from pre-snap to a half second after the snap, where they can't tell what's coming, or it's hard for them to parse in the moment, like where is everyone going to wind up and that sort of stuff. I just think he's super smart. So I think him taking over the play calling and doing the play calling on defense, I think that's great. And I think he probably feels like he can do that because he implicitly trusts the guy who has taken over the offense, and now he implicitly trusts the scouting department. So that's been taken off his hands.
That's a good point. What would you say, Thor, to anybody who maybe is a naysayer about the Jim Nagy or is skeptical from the Oklahoma side? Because obviously, you know, Trav and I, we're going to be positive about it, and we are resident sunshine pumpers in the Oklahoma community. So some may not be as apt to listen to us. But from an outsider perspective, what would you say to Oklahoma fan who's skeptical about why this hire matters, not even just the long term, but even the short term, even this upcoming year?
Well, certainly someone making that argument wouldn't be making it from like the perspective of a college program shouldn't have a general manager, because then they just wouldn't understand the sport in 2025. So they would have to be arguing against Jim Nagy, the individual in that position. And I would be curious what points they would even bring up to question his bona fides for that position. The NFL clearly trusts his ability to evaluate talent, right? I mean, they employed him for years and years and years in different organizations, and then they put him in charge of the steward of their game that signifies development, right? Like, so like, you know, between all that different, the NFL trusts the guy. And then in the other facets of it, I don't know how you could project him to fail, right? Like, if as long as he's good with the talent evaluation, again, I think he's going to be a value add with the social media stuff in terms of pitching the recruits. He can also give them, I have contacts with all the NFL teams. I was their draft guy, like, come here, improve your visibility to them. I introduce you to those guys. I'll talk, you know, like whatever. That's going to help as well. And then, like I said, the running the thing like an NFL team, that's what he's used to, right? It's not someone who developed bad habits by having like an old-timey view of what college football is. He can just step in. He'll turn that into an NFL front office. So I don't know what they would point to project him to fail. It's not to say that he will 100% succeed, but that feels like a slam dunk hire from all perspectives. I don't know in what way you could, like who would that person hypothetically propose should have had that job instead? I would like to see them stack their talent evaluation resume up against Jim Nagy.
Probably themselves. They probably think they can do a better job.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting. Like you bring up the social media side. I think it was hilarious when like a day after it got announced, Jim replied to Hayes Fawcett and said like, "We need to talk, Hayes," or something like that. And I was getting sent like text messages like, "Man, he's wasting no time. He's going after Hayes Fawcett. Now Hayes can only announce OU commitments from now on." I don't know what kind of deal Jim's cooking up behind the scenes. Like, but that's the thing. Like when you have a guy as dynamic as Jim Nagy, like everything's on the table. You know what I mean? Like you don't know, especially Jim Nagy in a new role that he gets to kind of build out. It's not unlike the Senior Bowl, right? He gets to build out the Senior Bowl, right? What does he do? You know, it takes off, right? Like makes it better than ever in ways that some people probably never even thought it could be, right? Like different unique things, creative things like with the City Mobile and things like that. So like, I think people know that and they're like, man, give this guy the clay that is an OU or a college football front office job and see what he molds out of it, because who knows what he can make out of it. But yep, 3 votes for Jim Nagy from this panel, which is good. 3-0. There you go. It's democracy. Yep. Thor, I want to ask you, obviously, you're famous for the Thor 500. The Thor 500 is the top 500 prospects that are going to go into the NFL draft, with comps for all 500, literal comps for all 500. It's absolutely insane. This guy is a maniac. I'm grateful that he even carved out some time for us. So. Yeah. I know you've got a lot of time between now and the draft to finish it out. I don't know when the Thor 500 goes live. I know you've got to get a lot of, a lot more information from scouts and watching more film and breaking down combine stuff, and pro days are about to happen. So you're going to judge those things. Talk to me a little bit about the OU guys, right? Specifically the ones that were at the combine: Ethan Downs, Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman. We'll start with Danny Stutzman. Danny Stutzman, obviously beloved linebacker here. His dad, Steve, is a regular on our radio station, Papa Top. Awesome. Did the, Oklahoma only fears, Texas fears Oklahoma, Oklahoma only fears God. Like, did all that, went on McAfee. He's a big personality, but runs a really good time, measures out fine. Talk to us about Danny Stutzman real quick.
I love Danny Stutzman as a player. But I didn't think he was going to test as well as he did. We were talking about that on Sunday night. You guys might have anticipated it more than me, but he kind of blew my socks off. It was 6'3 1/4, 233, a 9.71 RAS. I would not have pegged that coming in. So if Danny's listening, I apologize. I definitely undersold your athleticism. 10-yard split was really good. Yeah, so he proved the athleticism thing. He really struggled in coverage this year, but that's a guy who, over the length of his career, as you guys know, there was the times where he'd be nicked up, and I always found it striking when Danny Stutzman was not on the field, the Oklahoma defense, what it was against the Oklahoma defense when Stutzman was on it. It was sort of a remarkable schism between the two. You can really tell that the players, when in college, that the defense will greatly fall off, or the offense, if one player comes off the field. He's just a really good player. I don't think he's as comfortable. I think he's more comfortable going forward, right, attacking than he is with his back to the quarterback, for instance. But yeah, I mean, you're getting a good football player in Danny Stutzman, and probably now after the athletic test, I would have to assume the middle rounds for Danny Stutzman. I'd have to assume he probably feels pretty good in there.
Yeah, I mean, we felt it. There were some games in that 2023 season that we sure wish we could have had Danny, and probably made for one of our losses for sure, him going out. But it was striking. It was, hey, when he's out, you can't always point to it, right? I mean, it's like a plus minus in basketball. It's like, man, when they're off the floor, they got to get outscored by this much. When they're on the floor, they outscore opponents by this much. But it's weird because, like, it's not often you could just point to his replacement that was out there and be like, oh, this guy isn't as good at this specific thing as Danny, and that's why it's not working. It was just Danny's not out there. So the communication side of it, how much do scouts really take into consideration that this guy has been calling a Brent Venables defense for what, three years? Like, it's a complicated defense, as you said before. Like, it's very multiple. It asks linebackers and safeties to kind of be interchangeable, especially the cheetah position. Like how much does the NFL really care about, hey, this guy was calling Brent Venables defense the last 3 years. He must know a lot about defense.
They care. Some teams more than others, right? But like, yeah, they care. They even, things like the team captain stuff. Like, there's organizations that you get a legitimate boost in your evaluation for stuff like that. But yeah, the things that calling the defensive plays and especially for a defense like that and a complicated one, yeah, that's certainly going to be a plus on his evaluation.
I got you. Well, what about, let's see. Let's go Billy Bowman next. Billy Bowman, obviously, we wish he was 6'1". He'd be a first rounder if that were the case. But Billy Bowman, obviously, the fiance or husband, JP, are they married yet? You're muted. So you can tell it's live, folks.
It always happens once. I think fiance. I don't think they're married.
You still think fiance?
Yeah, I
Anyways,
think so.
not many times, can you be an NFL player, All American, this, that, and the other, and be woefully underachieving compared to your fiance. But obviously, his fiance, Jada Coleman, eventual Hall of Fame softball player, 4-time national champion, whatnot. Tell us what you thought of Mr. Coleman, Mr. Billy Bowman's times and his evaluation. Well, how do you think he projects as well?
Yeah, he did okay at the I mean, the 4.42 was good. The 1.52 10-yard split was good. The vertical wasn't quite as good, but yeah, I mean, we knew he wasn't going to measure in well, right? And you're way below, the line there as far as that. Just the hair under 5'10", 192. And then one of in fact, the smallest wingspan of the safety class. I like the way he plays, though. He has sort of the hair on fire style, and he finds himself around the ball, and he has ball skills, right? And he has speed, so he has the instincts for that. That wild man thing, in addition to having the small tackle radius wingspan sort of a thing, you see the missed tackles. That's something we need to try to clean up best we can. But I like that he's always there. Right. I mean, that he factors in a lot. His name's getting called out a lot on the broadcast. So I like how active he is. I like his game. It's just, yeah, you're capped on the ceiling there by the measurables.
What do you think of him being like a nickel guy or something like that? More of like a, I don't know, slot corner or something like that. Where do you see him projecting, given that size, given that speed? I mean, he's cool coming downhill. He's got coverage skills. You mentioned he's a ball hawk. I mean, he had 3 pick sixes in 2023. I think he had six interceptions in total in 2023, and some athletic with the ball in his hand type guys. So obviously, being a defender, they're not going to say, "Oh man, he's great with the ball in his hands. We need to draft him in the first round." But how do you see that projecting?
Yeah, I think certainly he's shown that he can do it. And I think it could be worth investigating more. Like if the team that is drafting him, or maybe teams that need a nickel, you might see him as more than that. I think probably he would project better at that if he can hang there. And he, like I said, he does have the experience. 243 snaps in the slot in 2003 and 156 last year. He has more, of course, as the deep safety guy, but your measurables are going to be, it's less pronounced, I think, as the nickel defender. And also you have the thing where you're close to the ball and you can do your, fly downhill thing. Then we can really start working on those tackle angles. We got to do something with that. But again, I love how involved he is, and you get him closer to the ball, playing him there. So I think it's worth, it's a worthy thought experiment.
Yeah, it's always funny seeing him around Norman because he doesn't fit in a lot of t-shirts. His arms don't. He's a buff dude. There's no doubt about it. He's often rocking the tank tops. But if I spent that much money on tattoos and had those biceps, I probably wouldn't own sleeves. But obviously we love Billy Bowman here. He's been here a long time. But yeah, he's definitely not afraid to hit. I like that. He will come down and try and plant somebody. But obviously getting him closer to the ball helps with that for sure. Last but not least, our boy Ethan Downs. So Ethan Downs, 2-time all-conference guys, got some production at the Big 12 level at least. Good motor, is a guy who's going to interview extremely well. He is married to an OU rower, actually. She's a really, really good one. And anyways, Ethan Downs had the flu at the Shrine game, so didn't get to play in that, went through interviews, did some workouts, things like that. So he really needed a good combine showing, and he seemed to. I think he was at, like a 4.7, did 32 reps on the bench. I think that was the highest amongst all edge and defensive line. He was kind of, a lot of people were like, okay, is he going to be drafted late? Is he, he's got shorter arms. So as an edge, it's like, man, you got all these mutants at the position that have these crazy wingspans. It's like, what did you see from Ethan Downs, and do you think it was enough to get him drafted and drafted a little bit earlier than people thought?
Well, yeah, I think he's going to get drafted. I mean, you mentioned like he's going to be good in the building, right? Like, and the effort is always going to be there. And I think if nothing else, you can project him as a special teams presence. And the only thing is, can he hang around as sort of a depth piece on the edge? The lack of length is the one thing I think potentially that could disqualify it. He's not the most explosive of dudes. Right. It's the strength is good coming forward. And like you said, he'll fight till the end. But it's just a thing. Does he have the athletic profile with that shorter reach that he has to make it? But I think he'll provide enough value on special teams and prove that he can at least hang as a backup edge.
Yeah. It's again that wingspan will get you, but
yeah,
he's got motor. He's got the punch. Again, locker room guy. I know after he went through his testing, he got his agent got contacted by a few teams that were interested in talking. So I know it at least it perks some people up. And yeah. So is that something that you had looked at on Bowman specifically? You think if he would have come out in the last draft, he would have gone higher, considering his explosive, his 6 picks, his 3 touchdowns, or do you think it was valuable for him to come back another year in college and gain all of those snap experience that obviously NFL executives like?
As far as Billy Bowman, like the thing that was going to be the black mark on his evaluation, it wasn't going to change. So I don't think there would have been a big difference in where he ultimately was drafted, for better or worse, right? Like, that's the thing that's going to ding you. Like, I think
he wasn't going to grow 3 inches.
That's the thing. Like, yeah, the thing you're getting nitpicked for, the thing that you're going to drop down for, like, there's some teams that literally will not draft. He's not going to be on their board because he doesn't fit their thresholds. Some teams are way more open to that, right? And so those are the teams that are going to be sort of shopping for him late. But it was always going to be the case, whatever year he came out. So I don't think it affected it one way or the other.
Do you think NFL teams are moving more towards sticking to, hey, we'll never draft a guy under this? Like, draft trends always change, right? It was like, okay, for a while it was like, okay, running backs run the NFL, so you need to draft them high. And then it got to the point where I know, like I've said to you, probably in the last couple of years, like, I'm never taking a running back in round 1. Well, now, like, we could see multiple. I mean, I don't know about multiple, but we're definitely going to see one running back in round 1. So with that, like, being said, like, are the timeline of it, are people really hung up on, like, there are some people that are like, look, if a guy's not over 5'10" or over 5'11" or whatever, I'm not touching him? Or are there trends, with, again, maybe nickels or maybe, somewhere, wherever, slot corners or whatever you want? Like, do you think that there are some teams that subscribe to different theories in that sense?
Yeah, like on the whole, and as a hard and fast rule, I think the NFL is slowly moving away from that. But there are certainly exceptions to that. A famous one was just fired. Trent Baalke was like crazy obnoxious with it. He is obsessed with his thresholds at positions, and he famously would not consider people beneath it. It's the reason that Aiden Hutchinson was not the first overall pick, that Trevon Walker was. It was literally the lengths of their arms. Now, yeah, that was the thing. Like, but there, that's an extreme example of it. But a lot of the sort of forward thinking, analytic type ones, they're not going to have hard and fast rules because there's exceptions to every rules. I think they use the measurables more as guideposts and as a part of a data set, right? Like, there are guys beneath the threshold and even significantly beneath thresholds that can become tremendous NFL players. They have to be elite in various other categories to do that. But if you won't even consider them because you've just cleaved everyone out beneath that threshold, you're going to miss people as well. So I think that the new age front offices have this down better, but it isn't. I don't mean to say it's not important, right? Like, measurables are over the entire data set. it is going to point you towards the more athletic players are the more successful players, and the players with length along the lines are going to be a bit more successful than ones without. But again, that you can't just evaluate and pick on over takeaways from the huge data sets. It has to be specific to the player and specific to the evaluation. That's what makes this an art and not a science. And it's why we love doing the draft stuff.
So I just noticed something, but now that you're a self-described OU fan, now that Jim is
Boomer.
Here, there you go. We're going to need you
to
replace that Texas helmet that's over your left shoulder with that Oklahoma one that's way down low. Yeah, or you can turn it upside down. That's always an option. So upside down horns, or put OU on top and put Texas down low.
I'll do it live with you guys on here. It's horns down.
Live.
There we go.
Yes, sir. The horns are literally moving down. They're moving
and
down.
There we go.
There we go.
And it's right by my beloved Iowa helmet. So
Yep, right next to the Gophers.
Actually, we got Baylor is my brother's alma mater. This is where I went to undergrad. This is my current place of employment. I put Texas A&M there because Matthew Berry grew up in College Station. So I told Barry if he hired me, I'd put A&M on the top row. So I kept to my deal. And now we got obviously OU, Sooner fan, go at the Fighting Jim Nagy's, and then the grad school Iowa. And then I live in Minneapolis, so we had to have the Gophers up there too.
Perfect. I love the breakdown. No, that was important to me. That was important to me to get them up there. So looks good. It already looks better.
I think so too. Yeah, I'd add some color up there. That Texas helmet pretty nondescript. It's
kind of boring. I love it. So JP, what you got for Thor?
Yeah, man. So one of my questions, I think, just kind of shifting gears. Obviously, I've never been talking about OU, but going to the NFL. With both of you being, Skull fans, Vikings fans, Thor, give me your opinion. And we talked a little bit about this, right? I don't want to say argument. We say disagreement, again, over some stakes, to say almost. Do you think that J.J. McCarthy is going to take the Vikings to the promised land? Do you think that he will do everything Sam Darnold did this year, but actually win a playoff game?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think he has what it takes to potentially break the curse. The Vikings being one of the very few teams that has never won the Super Bowl, and yet they have one of the highest win percentages regular season. You look at the history of the franchises, the Vikings are way up there, and yet we've never won a Super Bowl. But yeah, I love McCarthy's game. As people who follow me on Twitter know, a winner going back to high school, won a state title, won a national title. He made a third title game that they didn't win, played in one of those with a broken hand, goes to Michigan, turned that program around. They were considering firing Jim Harbaugh, and then they made the college football playoff all 3 years with McCarthy, won the national title his last year, of course, and he was playing in a 12 personnel NFL pro style offense. Of course, with Harbaugh. Harbaugh said last process that he was the best player in the draft, best player in Michigan history, best quarterback in Michigan history, J.J. McCarthy. But he also has all the measurables, like the size is fine, is adequate, but like the arm strength, the kid's got a whip. He was 1 mile per hour off the NFL combine record for max velo throw. We didn't get to see him run the 40. The reports I had seen the last time he ran a 40 at Michigan was the upper 4.4s. Kevin O'Connell says he runs low 4.5s, so somewhere in there. But he had the 6 fastest 3 Coney, regardless of position at the last combine. Yeah, he did do that. He had a hamstring or something, or a knee from the title run, so he didn't do the full gamut of tests, but he blazed the 3 cone. And you see this, like, the part of his game that's super underrated, because he was in that pro style system and they were good, the last couple of years in particular. And, you had the physical offensive line, and Jim Harbaugh obviously has the run first ethos. You saw what that did to Justin Herbert's counting stats with the Chargers this past season. But you didn't see McCarthy get let off the leash as much as you're going to see it at the next level. He is tremendous improvising off script. It's funny because that is the one kryptonite of Sam Darnold's game, is that Darnold, he's awesome. Sam Darnold's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when he's throwing to his first read, when the first read's there, when the look's there. Because then he has his, you know, he has the big time arm. It's going to look good coming out. The ball shoots out of his hand. The second read is okay. Beyond that, especially when he's under duress, you're screwed. And what the Lions and the Rams found at the end of the season, all we got to do is take away that dude's first read and then ramp up the heat on him and dare him to beat us going to the second and then the third reads. They put the Lions put Amick Robertson on Jefferson. They put their best guy on the other side, so he would be on Addison one-on-one. But they were double teaming with the safety Jefferson the whole time, and then the Rams just stole their strategy, but upping the heat. And then Darnold, it breaks his brain. It was discombobulating. Like he just held on to the ball. It was like the Manchurian candidate. All of a sudden, he didn't have his script to read. That the worst part of his game is arguably the best part of JJ McCarthy's game. And we're going to see it a lot more at the NFL. He keeps his mechanics with him when he's on the move. And, you know, the three-cone athleticism, that 40 time, like he has all that in the backfield, makes people miss. And he will fling frozen ropes, third sector of the field, opposite hash. He can access any receiver. So getting receivers around him who can freelance with him, you're going to see that as well. But he can run the concepts on time, the pro style ones. That's what he proved playing for Jim Harbaugh there. That's what I thought was so impressive. It was him and Drake May in the last class were head and shoulders above everyone else in terms of the amount of throws they had over the middle, the completions, the passer rating, and the efficiency numbers and all that sort of stuff, the NFL type concept. So I think McCarthy is going to be great in the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew I could just hand that off to my boy Thor because I remember at St. Elmo's on Sunday when you looked at him, knowing he's a Vikings fan, you're like, so do you really think JJ is going to be any good? What do you think? And I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta get out of this guy's way. Yeah, I mean, and my argument is not necessarily. I mean, obviously, I'm a JJ guy. I totally am, but I'm more of a rookie quarterback deal guy.
Yeah.
Like, and that's where all this talk about, if we bring back Sam for like $40 million a year, I'm like, no, we need to take advantage of the window. Look at Jaden Daniels. Like, look at all the quarterbacks that have been in the Super Bowl since they changed the rookie deal back when Sam Bradford got paid all that money, right? Yeah. I mean, Cam went on a rookie deal. Mahomes went on a rookie deal. You had the Carson Wentz deal with Nick Foles. That was a rookie deal. You had Joe Burrow on a rookie deal. You had Jalen Hurts initially on a rookie deal. You had all these guys, basically like Matt Ryan, Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady were the only ones that like didn't need a rookie deal roster around them to make it happen. But that's what's crazy when you look back at all the Super Bowl appearances. You always have that team, and look at the playoffs just in general. Yeah, Brock Purdy, another one. It seems like the 49ers only go with them, but it's one of those things like the rookie quarterback deal is the biggest cheat code in roster building in sports. And it's like, if you can do that, you can build such an all-star team around these guys that I've always said, if I were, if some owner got drunk enough to give me a GM role, I'd be like, we're going to spend all our money on the offensive line and defensive line. We'll spend like 70% of our cap there. The rest of it, we're doing rookie deal wide receivers, rookie deal running back, rookie deal quarterback, all those kind of guys. Because I'm like, if you just protect, you can usually and have studs everywhere. Quarterbacks can look really good, right? Look what Dallas did with in 2016 when they went 13-3 with the best offensive line in football and Zeke and Dak. And now Zeke and Dak, like, what are they now? Except one's basically out of the league and the other one's one of the most overpaid players in the league. Like, that's why I like JJ McCarthy so much, is because I think we can win now with him. I think we can use one of the biggest cap purses and go out and spend. And I really think that we're set up with KOC and with Brian Flores right now as two play callers that are extremely dynamic and tend to get the most out of their players. I mean, look at Brian Flores, brings in all these guys, Grenard and Van Ginkel and all these guys. All of a sudden, they're Pro Bowl guys. You know what I mean? Like nobody wanted these guys. So, bringing them in, I just think Minnesota is in a great position if they go with their rookie quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, and I think they got the pick right. I tweeted out like halfway through the college football season that in J.J. McCarthy's year, I forget who they beat, but I just like quote tweeted it, and I was like, Minnesota Vikings quarterback J.J. McCarthy. I'm like, it's who I want, and I've got the receipts, much like Thor does. I've got the receipts going back that I've wanted Thor. Yes, I've wanted Thor on the podcast for sure, but I've wanted JJ in purple the whole time. And a lot of people just say, "Oh, you're just saying that because you're like." No, I've said it the whole time. Trust me, I got the receipts. But yeah, I think he's going to be the one to break that curse. I'm hoping and praying, man. I can't wait to go to that parade. It is going to be a very sweet one. It's going to be a very cold one, but it's going to be well worth it.
It's going to be epic. Yeah, people here have been waiting a long time, and that's the kid certainly has the disposition that you're looking for, and I think he has the physical ability, like I was mentioning as well. So yeah, very excited for the future. Very excited for the short-term future. Curious to see what goes on in free agency, but yeah, it's going to be JJ McCarthy's team next year. If Sam comes back, it would only be basically be if there is no market for Sam. Right. It is the safety net for him as far as like this goes. The market really hasn't developed for him yet. I think a couple of the top quarterbacks need to get off the board first. I think there was a public assumption that Sam would easily be number one on every team's board and they'd all duke it out for him and then they'd move on to that's not what it is. So we'll just have to see where things go. But there appears to be a reticence right now to give Sam to go way into the future with I'm talking the rest of the NFL, right? Like where you would definitely price yourself out of what the Vikings price range always was to bring him back. They're willing to go a bit above where they had budgeted for QB, for that role last year, right? When he was it 1 year 10 or 1 year 11? They'll go over that, they'll go roughly double and change over that. But that's, they're not going to go over a certain number, and they certainly are not going to go multiple years. That report by Florio, whatever he was, it's not true. That's not what the situation is. If Sam, like I said, if there's no market and that he feels the best option for him is returning on a 1 year contract that the public will look at as like super cheap and like all that, like that would be the one scenario he returns, but it would be in a straight up competition. And I can tell you boys this right now, Sam Darnold will not win that competition if it happens. So, and I think Sam knows, I think Sam would, if he can get a contract to leave, he's going to take it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is if there's no market, there's no market, right? Like you got to find somebody to dance with. Right. So, all these people are like, oh, just give him a Baker deal, $33 million. It's like, no, like, no, find somebody else to give him $33 million then. Like, and for obvious reasons, I like Baker Mayfield much more than I like Sam Darnold. A little bit of bias, but I also think he's a better quarterback.
It's clear. So.
Yeah, it's clear. But that's the thing. What the annoying part about this, Thor, and the conversation around it is this guy threw, 35 touchdowns? You're going to let him walk out the door? It's like, guys, he was bad his whole career, and then he got to KOC and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Aaron Jones and TJ Hawkins and this, that, and the other. All of a sudden, he has a career year, just like Kirk Cousins was playing at an MVP level before he got hurt in KOC system, and now he's benched for Michael Penix Jr. So it's like at a certain time, you just have to say, hey, look, KOC is the reason Sam's playing well. If Darnold goes to the Raiders, like there's nobody's saying he's going to light it up. Like, and that's why there's no market for him, is because there's such high respect for KOC. He was coach of the year. Like the fact that Darnold plays so well is a testament to KOC, a testament to Sam, sure, but also a testament to KOC, the weapons, just the offensive design, the development, everything like that for sure. But yeah, I'm all in on rookie deal. You can let Sam go. Don't care. I know people are like, you have to get something for him. You got to tag and trade. You got to do that. Like, no, it's fine. Let him leave. In my opinion, just use that money to build the best team you can around JJ McCarthy, and heck, sign Thor to be backup quarterback.
Sure.
I do not care. Surely you've watched enough, JJ McCarthy film to where you can pretty much replicate everything he does. Just you just gotta be the ball. But I have had ongoing beef for the last couple of years with a specific quarterback, not beef, but beef with fans of a specific quarterback that think differently than I do. So many accounts that follow Texas were very impressed with Quinn's great showing at the combine. That he's going to crawl up into the first round. I saw somebody tweeting that the Jets had interviewed him and Cam Ward, I think, and maybe Shador or something. Anyways, like they were just interviewing like he could get up into the first round. That it was reported that multiple teams are lying in wait as they go up and jump up for Quinn Ewers. Give me your thoughts on A, his combine, and B, kind of his projection, what teams might look at when they're ranking out the quarterbacks. And feel free to rank the quarterbacks. I don't want to hold you against your Thor 500 right now, but kind of rank the quarterbacks as I see your screen switching as you go to that screen.
Yeah, well, right now I have like six QB6, QB7, like somewhere in there. Like, I don't know. He just is what he like. I comp him to Kenny Pickett. We've seen Ewers' work. He's another guy. I mean, it's not the same thing as Sam Darnold, but there's similarities there where I think what he's good at, he was a maestro running the system. He had Sarkisian's system down. He did really good with the timing concepts. And when the first read and or the second was there, he typically looked decent. That's where you see the arm talent. But he's not good under duress, and especially when those first reads have been taken from him. So that's where you get the Sam Darnold corollary there. And he's not super like escapable in the pocket or whatever. I mean, it's the reason why they put Arch Manning in that Georgia game. Georgia was just caving in the offensive line at Texas, and Ewers very much looked like Sam Darnold in the last two games. Like he was actually afraid to be there, and he couldn't get away from the pass rush. So they put Arch in for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the arm talent is decent. Like it's above average, NFL above average, but he was forwarded as the next Matt Stafford when he was coming out of Texas. It's like, the side winding, kind of guy with a big time arm and all this. And he definitely does not have that arm. He just doesn't. Like throwing downfield, he has to throw the kitchen sink into it. I like how he spins it. But yeah, like in the intermediate, that's where you saw his mastery with those timing concepts. The ball comes out with velocity, put it on the hands. So I do think he's worthy of going, I don't know, round 5, as a developmental guy, but that's someone who absolutely should not be in the draft right now. Quinn Ewers absolutely should. He wasn't going to be Texas starting quarterback last year. So I realized the conundrum he was in. Bro, hop in the portal. You would have made more money in college in 2025 than you are going to make and take home NFL cash where you're going to get taken. He ain't going in the first round. He ain't going in the second round either. And I would be surprised if he went in the third. Yeah. He wasn't great. He wasn't great last year. Like what we're pointing to the 2023 or what we're going to pretend like the Michigan game was the only one he played last year.
That's the thing. It's like they want to point to Alabama, Michigan, those things. But at the end of the day, he hasn't made it through a college season healthy yet.
How about Georgia?
Yeah, he hasn't made it through a college season healthy yet. Right?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, the durability stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he struggles under pressure. He gets happy feet. And I mean, people want to talk about his record against Oklahoma. The only game he lost against Oklahoma, he had 3 turnovers? Like lost the ball on a fumble, couple picks. Like I do wonder if there's a situation, Thor. We've now brought up 2 coaches that are known as offensive gurus, right? KOC and Steve Sarkisian. With Sam Darnold after the first read in a genius's system in KOC, he wasn't very good, but he got away with it because KOC is really good at designing that first read, right? Mm-hmm. Same with Sarkisian.
Yep.
I have all the respect in the world for Sarkisian's offensive mind. Now he struggles on first and goal, but Texas fans might be tuned in, and that would hurt their feelings probably more than the Quinn, analysis. But my thing is, like, Lincoln Riley, we dealt with this at times. Like, I know that, Baker's that dude. Kyler I mean, it would have taken a lot for Kyler not to be successful. But like these offensive gurus, like sometimes I feel like they make their quarterbacks look so good because they can scheme open their first read so easily that it's, I don't know, that it's almost like it needs to be treated as a heavier recruiting thing in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like KOC should be able to look at that and be like, hell no, we're not paying Sam. Are you kidding me? He can't get. I can scheme anybody to get to their first read. I need a quarterback that can get to second and third. So I just find that interesting that really, really good offensive minds like KOC and Steve Sarkisian and at times Lincoln Riley, like they seem to continue to find quarterbacks that can't get past a first read, and I don't know why that is.
Well, they would probably see it a different way of like those the guy, they will follow the script as I mean, like Sam doesn't deviate from the script, and those guys, they don't want you deviating from the script, right? Like there's some directors that will let you ad lib, and there's some that are like read the effing lines as they're written. And a couple of those, the genius play callers you're talking about, they want it run as written, right? Like, and to go to another draft prospect, I think that was the issue with Jalen Milroe down the stretch. There was a push and pull with him and DeBoer, right? DeBoer wanted him to win from the pocket. He wouldn't let him scramble on the passing concepts. Like Alabama gave it back to him by like running design quarterback runs way more in this playbook than the last one. But like on passes, DeBoer's like, you keep your ass in the pocket. Well, Milroe, he loves using his legs, and he wants to break containment when he wants to break containment, right? So there was issues with that, but it just depends on, and this is why guys need to find their destiny as far as like, with the NFL teams where they get taken, especially at the quarterback position. It has to be someone that understands you and is going to work with your game, and design an offense around you. But yeah, there are limitations, strengths and limitations with all of them.
Yeah, I find that fascinating, the director, analogy there, because in my mind, I would be like, okay, yes, that makes a ton of sense, read my lines, but I don't care I don't care if I'm that director at all. If I've got, Daniel Day-Lewis working on my film, I may let him ad lib, or, you know what I mean? Like, it depends on what actor you have. If you've got an all-timer, if you've got somebody out there, a Brad Pitt, a George Clooney, somebody, it's like, yeah, you can let them ad lib. I'm wondering, it's like, okay, if you had Mahomes as a quarterback, do you think you'd be allowed to ad lib a little bit more at quarterback, or these directors, are they saying, hey, read the lines because they know they have limited actors? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think like Mahomes, it's coming from the other way where you had to teach him initially, bro, you have to read some of these lines, but then here's when it's cool for you to go off script, right? Like the book on him coming out of Texas Tech was he was just a gunslinger, and it was just bombs away and throw caution to the wind and all this sort of stuff. And like he wouldn't, follow the concepts of your offense. He just, chuck it deep or whatever. But like he proved with Reed, and I think this is why it was important for him to have the year behind Alex Smith. He got good at those timing concepts and sort of the stuff that the public would probably view as like, as putting, right? The easy stuff, but he could already do the stuff you can't teach, right? And when you don't have the answer given to you, right? And that's the definition of off script, right? Like it's when the first things aren't there. You're creating the script in the moment now as the bullets are flying. So like the guys who can do both, those are the guys, typically that are killers in the NFL. So yeah, and I think McCarthy could become one of those guys.
No doubt. I've got to pay some bills real quick here as we pop up over an hour. But for those of you that do know, I've got a slammed rest of March with Team Sports Consulting Group traveling. I got Vegas to hopefully get some UNLV business done, which amazingly I'll be in Vegas for March Madness. I didn't plan that, by the way, but it was what we'll call a happy accident. Little Bob Ross there. But anyway, some of you know my barber, Easton, from my social media. been my barber for like 10 years. He's been working at Boardroom Styling Lounge for a while now. The fine folks over there are letting me give 20% off your first service to all JP and Trav viewers. Go into any Boardroom Styling Lounge nationwide. I think they got like 48. I'm not sure they got any up north near you, Thor, but they got like 48, ton of them in Texas, really. But use the code TRAV20 for 20% off your first service of your choice. But yeah, I got the hat on today, but my beard's still clean, everything like that. When you're on camera a decent amount, or when you're trying to grow the business, you gotta stay clean. So no, that's, and I can't cover it up with all this brand merchandise like you get. New Era this. I'll tell you what, Matt Berry needs to give me a call so I can get some New Era stuff. But do you do any way too early, or are you just wrapped up with the Thor 500 just totally in the weeds there? Like, when do you start your, like, I don't know, your scouting? Is it just during football season? Is it during the summer after the draft's done? What's your process like, Thor?
This summer for the next class. Yeah, like I go one at a time because I've been covering college football in the fall. So like I like to sort of separate it like that. Like I don't pay much, as much attention like to this stuff in college when it's draft season or vice versa. So that's kind of how I do it. But yeah, the next class this summer, I'll create my new database and get everyone in there and start watching cut-ups of guys and doing that whole thing. Nice.
Well, I look forward to having you on many times, of course, but definitely to talk about Oklahoma's next class, because it's going to be a much bigger one than this year. 3 guys. That'll be all the show next time, is breaking down the 8 or 9 guys that we're.
I love it. Yeah, Nagy better come through. Like now we've built him up, so he's got to come through. But I'm confident in him.
I think we ought to. I mean, when we do that show specifically, I think Jim ought to join us. I think it ought to be 100%. Us two and you two. What do you think?
I bet he would.
We can just do it.
Yeah, it'd be cool to have you, kind of talk to Jim about each prospect. That could be some fun. You just got to put it in his ear. That way, I don't get in trouble from OU, compliance or SID or anything. Trying to reach out to Jim Nagy before he even gets on campus full time. So,
sure.
Anyways, any parting thoughts? We're a little bit over our time, but I know people are enjoying it, so no need to cut it too short. But any parting thoughts, JP? Any last questions?
I was just gonna say, we might as well all get together, next year during the combine. You know what I mean? Can set something up then.
Oh, we will annually.
Jim be up here too.
Can't wait. Yeah, can't wait. And I guess the only last thing I have to say is just Boomer Sooner.
Come on, Thor. That's right. Boomer Sooner all day. Boomer. Man, Thor, thanks for coming on, brother.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Talk to you soon.